Today, we're going to get into a pretty wild psychological journey. We're going to ask what happens when a really sensitive person, an empath, actually survives the darkness of a narcissistic relationship. Well, if we look at it through the lens of Carl Jung, it turns out they don't just heal. Oh no, they evolve into something completely new, something the narcissist could never, ever have seen coming. Let's get into it. And this idea right here, this is the whole heart of it. It's a complete flip of the script on one of the most painful experiences a person can go through. This isn't just a story about surviving something terrible. It's a story of creation, where the very attempt to destroy you is what ends up forging a new, unbreakable self. So, how does this whole thing even start? Well, it begins with something Jung called participation mystique, which is basically an unconscious merger. The empath and the narcissist get tangled up psychologically. But here's the catch. It is a total one-way street. In this whole setup, the empath becomes what you could call a shadow container. And yeah, it's kind of like being an emotional dumpster for the narcissist's unprocessed junk. All their trauma, their shame, their rage, they have to put it somewhere. And it's an unconscious deal where the empath agrees to carry all that psychological waste for them. So here's a look at how that transfer actually works. The narcissist can't stand to look at their own dark stuff, their shadow, so they just project it out. Their rage, their shame, that deep inner emptiness, it has to land somewhere. And it lands right on the empath, who just absorbs it so completely that it starts to feel like their own reality. And that's where the anxiety, the crippling self-doubt, and that heavy, dark depression comes from. And you can imagine, constantly absorbing all that toxicity leads you somewhere. And that somewhere is the most brutal part of the journey. It's what Jung called the night sea journey, a full-on descent into a psychological hell that honestly threatens to break you completely. Look, this is way more than just catching someone's bad mood. This is being forced to literally live inside their inner world. Jung had a name for it: psychological poisoning. The narcissist's toxic projections, they don't just hurt you, they actively get in there and rewrite your own story, until one day you look in the mirror and you have no idea who you are anymore. This whole path to rock bottom is just terrifying, but it follows a pattern. First, there's the poisoning from just constantly absorbing all that toxicity. Then, that leads to your sense of self dissolving, just falling apart, until finally you hit rock bottom, and that false, people-pleasing self you built just shatters into a million pieces. Jung called this ego death. But here's the thing. According to Jung, this massive, soul-crushing pain, it's not for nothing. He believed it was the price of admission. It's the non-negotiable ticket to get to true consciousness. That pain is the very thing that makes the next part, the rebirth, even possible. So, right there, from the absolute ashes of that ego death, something new finally starts to grow. This is the big turning point. It's like this alchemical transformation where the real you, the authentic self, is finally born, not in spite of the fire, but because of it. Now, the whole point of this entire nightmare, if you ask a Jungian, is something called individuation. It's the journey of becoming who you were actually meant to be, separate from all the junk people project on you, separate from the expectations of others. And the craziest part is, the narcissistic relationship becomes this brutal but weirdly effective rocket ship for that exact process. And this is the moment. This is that huge internal shift. It's the point where the empath stops being a passive victim of what's happening to them and becomes the active creator of who they are. And that choice, it only becomes truly, deeply possible after that old false self has been completely burned away. This leads to this incredible, almost unbelievable reframing of the abuser. You see, in their nonstop effort to destroy you, the narcissist accidentally becomes a kind of unwitting shaman. They perform this psychological dismemberment that, is agonizing, but it's what destroys that fake, constructed identity and forces the real you, finally, to come out. So, what exactly crawls out of that fire? Because it's not the old empath. Not even close. It's a whole new archetype. The shadow walker. Someone who has walked through absolute darkness and come back, completely changed and, you know what? Empowered. This new person is the integrated empath. They haven't lost their sensitivity. That's a core part of them. But now that sensitivity is surrounded by strong, conscious, and frankly unreachable psychological boundaries. Their greatest weakness has been transformed into a protected, powerful strength. And check out these new superpowers that are gained through the ordeal. You get shadow literacy, the ability to just read darkness instantly. You develop shadow immunity, a deep gut-level rejection of toxicity. You build conscious boundaries that are impenetrable. And it all leads to this one thing: psychological sovereignty, a state of complete and total ownership of yourself. And look, these new abilities, they aren't magic. It's exactly what Jung was talking about. They come from making the unconscious conscious. Once you can actually see the puppet strings, they just lose their power over you. What used to feel like inescapable fate now becomes a choice. Now, a massive internal shift like this, it doesn't just stay inside. No way. It starts to radiate outward, and it radically changes your external world and affects everyone around you. They become what you could call a consciousness mirror. Before, their job was to reflect back what everyone else wanted to see. But now their authentic presence reflects back the truth. And this forces people to really confront their own selves, their own shadows, a lot of them for the very first time. And you can bet this can be deeply uncomfortable for other people. It can trigger something called projection withdrawal. I mean, think about it. When the people who used you as their emotional dumpster can't dump their darkness on you anymore, they're forced to actually deal with it themselves. And this can cause some really intense reactions, everything from anger to just total confusion. But for other empaths, this transformation is a game changer. You become a boundary beacon. Your very existence becomes living proof that there's a way out, that your sensitivity can be a strength, that psychological freedom isn't some fantasy, it's a real, achievable thing. So at the end of the day, this entire harrowing journey, from being an unconscious container to a conscious, sovereign being, it's all a journey of radical self-acceptance. And I'm not talking about the easy, fluffy kind. I mean the kind that is earned, the kind that is forged in the very fires that were meant to destroy you. And it leaves you with this one final question, right? Is it possible that our greatest, most unbreakable strengths aren't built when things are easy, but are actually forged in the crucible of our deepest wounds? It's a powerful thought to sit with. Thanks so much for tuning in.